Return to the breaking news from earlier. The suspended Labour councillor Ricky Jones has been found not guilty of encouraging violent disorder after he called for far-right protesters' throats to be cut at an anti-racism rally in the wake of rioting following the Southport murders. GB News Home and Security editor Mark White joins us. Mark, bring us up to speed on what's happening with this story.
Well, he was on trial, obviously, charged with inciting violence at this protest when he was caught on camera making that throat-slitting gesture and saying that these other protesters should have their throats cut. Now, he claimed when he was on trial that actually he wasn't talking about any individuals. He was just caught up in the anger of the situation, that it was completely out of character for him, that he was deeply angry by what he was seeing in terms of the violence up and down the country. And in particular, he spoke about one alleged incident of a sticker for the National Front that was discovered inside a train, and that peeled back, it revealed a razor blade inside that sticker. I don't know how true or not, whether that was some apocryphal tale, but he claims that on hearing that just added and fueled the anger that he had. He also called upon a number of character witnesses who all attested again to the fact that it was completely out of character for this councillor from Dartford, for this, as he was at the time, full-time union official. They had advised him, by the way, the Labour Party, not to go on this march on the 7th of August, precisely because of the potential for how it might look for a serving councillor to join such a protest. But he had decided to go anyway and to protest and to be caught up in the situation. At the end of the day, the jury, deliberating on all of the facts, all of the aggravating circumstances of what he did, the mitigating factors he put across, decided that he was not guilty. And you can agree or disagree with that. The fact that it has now been tried, it's been dispensed off as a court case. You're free to say whatever you like about whether you think that was a wrong-headed decision by the jury or not.
OK. Mark, thank you very much. That's Mark White there.
Using the internet without a VPN, a virtual private network, is a bit like taking to the road without car insurance. All it takes is one unlucky moment to cost you a lot of cash. This video's sponsor is Private Internet Access. They are the VPN to help keep you safe. Click the link in the description below to find out why over 30 million people have downloaded PIA to protect themselves online. A virtual private network is an app that hides your IP address and helps keep your data private. When you're browsing the internet at home, you give up a large amount of data to businesses, to shops, and indeed to social media giants too. Hackers have the ability to steal your personal data with ease, including sensitive information such as passwords, keystrokes, and even your personal photos. Private Internet Access helps protect your personal data by encrypting your internet connection to keep your data out of the hands of cyber criminals. And it's not just hackers either to be concerned about. Information can be censored too. When Canada passed their C18 bill, social media giants decided to ban news content on their platforms. But PIA can protect your ability to consume the news and content you love. Private Internet Access is available for Windows users, Mac OS, Android, Linux, iOS, and you can use one PIA subscription to protect an unlimited amount of devices. And we've got a huge GB News discount for you too. Click the link in this video's description and you'll get a massive 83% off PIA. That's under £2 a month, the price of a coffee, and you'll get an extra 4 months completely free on top. Also, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee too. Visit piavpn.com/GB News to start protecting yourself digitally today.
Joining us now is Spiked editor Tom Slater. Tom, good to see you. Tom, what do you make of this?
Well, I think what we really see in this case is what a difference a jury makes. Obviously, in the wake of Southport, we saw many people being arrested for various different crimes, whether it was inciting racial hatred, whether it was menacing communications, what have you. And in many of those cases, they were kind of strong-armed or strongly encouraged to plead guilty and were given quite hefty sentences as a consequence, Lucy Connolly being the most prominent example, but there are others as well. It's worth saying that Ricky Jones was hauled up on different charges, encouraging violent disorder. As I understand it, it's actually a harder charge to prove. But I think what we've seen in this case is that, generally speaking, juries are quite unwilling to send people to prison to convict them for what are often comments made, as despicable as they might be, in the heat of the moment, in a particular context. And given how many speech crimes we have on the statute, but given how many prosecutions we've seen of late, I think that's a positive thing to take, regardless of how we feel about this particular individual.
And yet, isn't there some sort of perhaps two-tier element to what we're seeing here? Obviously, Ricky Jones had good legal advice. He wasn't held in custody awaiting this trial either. Now, that isn't necessarily the case with what happened to those who were on the political right at the time of the protests. Some of those people were held in custody until they either pled guilty or innocent, and some of those, couldn't afford their own legal advice and were given what now, in retrospect, looks like, frankly, terrible advice to plead guilty to speech crimes.
No, absolutely. And it's worth saying that Ricky Jones, he was remanded in custody for a time before being bailed, but he was bailed. That didn't happen to Lucy Connolly, who was refused bail, presumably on the grounds that there was fear of reoffending there. It's also worth stressing that these are different offences again, so different, different judgments may have been made. But I think it really does speak to a certain lack of solid advice that was given to various people who were swept up in the post-Southport moment. And it's not just cases like Lucy Connolly. There's a gentleman called Jamie Michael, an ex-soldier, who was also arrested for inciting racial hatred over a video which, frankly, if you watch it, it wasn't hateful at all. He was encouraged by his duty solicitor to plead guilty. It was only because of his own bloody mindedness that he pleaded not guilty until the Free Speech Union could find out about him and furnish him with some proper legal advice. And when he finally ended up going to trial, he was acquitted in 17 minutes. He told me recently he didn't even have enough time for his tea to cool before he was called back in to hear his verdict. So it really does raise a lot of questions about disparities in what advice people are provided with, which that really shouldn't be the difference between someone losing their liberty and not.
Well, thank goodness organisations like the Free Speech Union exist for people when they do get into trouble. They know that there is somewhere to go. There are people who will have their back. Tom Slater, thanks indeed for joining us.
OK, we have some breaking news on this very story right now. Christopher Hope is in the studio. Christopher.
Yes, we're reporting that, of course, Ricky Jones was suspended by Labour. That continues despite the verdict today. So Labour sources have told GB News in the past half an hour that Councillor Ricky Jones was administratively suspended from the Labour Party, and this remains the case, crucially. The investigation is ongoing. The Labour whip was automatically removed when he was suspended, and he will not sit as a Labour councillor. They point out that at the time of his suspension, they said this about Ricky Jones, the party itself: this behaviour is completely unacceptable and it will not be tolerated. The councillor has been suspended from the party. That remains the case.
Just
legally innocent, but politically still a damaging.
I'm just going to say, bring Michael Ellison on this one as a former Attorney General. Just briefly, what do you make of this situation?
Well, I mean, one of the things that really strikes me is the value of the jury system to all listening to this, because here we've seen an example, and the big difference is that many of the people, like Lucy Connolly, did enter guilty pleas, which meant that the facts were not examined in the same way. Here, a jury examined the facts, they came to their conclusion. But it's interesting to note that Shabana Mahmood, the Labour Justice Secretary, has a plan afoot, which we've talked about here on GB News, to actually stop jury trials in many cases. I think this, and any person like myself who has been a barrister in criminal practice for many years, I was 17 years in criminal practice, would recognise the value of a jury system. And if a person, you or I, any of us, are accused of something, we would want a jury of our peers to make that decision. Here, they've made a decision that many people will disagree with, but that's our system. Yeah.